Welcome back to SHRALP Stories. This is part 3 of our video series called Tech Tips with Uncle Colty. Today, I know last episode we talked about doing laybacks and whatnot, but I figured this would be a good break in the video series. Let's talk a little bit about board design. You know, there's a lot of different surfboards out there. You got boards like this with 2 fins fixed onto it, right? We got boards like this with 3 fins fixed onto it. And then we got boards like this with 3 fins with plastic holding them in. But we're going to talk a little bit about what they do different, why they're different, and why some people think these suck versus those, those suck versus these do things that those don't. You know, all the things. So, I'm gonna ride these 2 boards today. I don't feel like carrying 3 boards down to the beach. It's a little bit annoying. So, unfortunately, you guys are stuck with watching me ride a Blady 90s shortboard and a brand new Timmy. And we're gonna go compare and contrast and see how they work. Stay tuned. Sick. Well, we went for a surf. Waves were pretty fun. A lot of the boys got a couple good ones. Ian's little brother, definitely the highlight of the session. Hopefully we could throw some clips in there. Liam Gautrin, you're a legend. Good work, getting tubed. But anyways, I don't know if you can tell, this one, the banana rockered out 90s chippy thruster, worked very well. And then I jumped on the Timmy 6-channel A6 is the new model that he's got. We'll go back to the house, we'll watch a couple of clips, and I'll tell you some differences. Like this one is much more drivey, whereas that one's a little bit more loose because it's a little smaller and a little wider. But yeah, there's some little differences that we'll go over back at HQ. So see you over there, all right? We're down here at SHRALP Stories HQ, and we're gonna go over some footage from this morning. Had a lot of fun, got a couple barrels. You know what? I want to start with my boy Liam Gautrin. He was on a tear this morning. Seems like he watched that last SHRALP Stories episode, took a couple notes, learned some things about tube riding. Check this clip out. See how he drops in? He's looking down the line already, and he puts his front hand up right in front of him, and he's following it as he's going into the tube. So that's like directing where you're gonna go. And he holds his line super strong all the way through the barrel. Nice, powerful, low center of gravity stance, and he pops out the front with ease and claims it super hard. But he was psyched. He was getting wave after wave this morning, ripping super hard. Liam Gautrin, next one to watch, aka Linus. But anyway, back to what we were talking about. Differences of boards. Let's go over here real quick. So what we're gonna do, check this out. If you look at these two surfboards from like an above view, you can tell up here, this is super narrow in between my 2 feet. This is what we call 12 inches down from the nose, a foot back. They do a wide point measurement here and here as well. This one's gonna be much wider than this one, but they're both high performance shortboards. They still are gonna be thrusters. They're still gonna be typically single concave. You know, there's other things that people like to do, double concave, all these different things. You know, I like really subtle surfboards that aren't super exaggerated. Like single concave's not this deep, you know, you want it to be just, you know, a little bit of single, keeps you out of the water. But, you know, this board was built in the 90's probably, or like early 2000s. Typical board of this era, you know, it's gonna be thin in the rail, a lot of rocker in the nose typically, a lot of rocker in the tail as well. They're very curvy surfboards, and it was something that like Tom Curran would have rode, or like, you know, Matt Archbold, or, you know, Chris Ward even, someone like that. Maybe the Lopez brothers, Shea Lopez, Corey Lopez, one of them would have rode one of these back in the day. A lot of people think they don't work. They're too thin, they're too this, they're too that. But, as you'll see in the clips, they're not that bad. They're good boards, you know? It's just different way of surfing. You know, they took a lot of inspiration from these boards to make what we have nowadays. And that's what's fun about riding these old school boards like this, because you learn a lot of things about why people surf the way that they did back in the day. And you can also progress yourself and surf better by learning new lines and new ways to do things. Like, I like Taj Burrow, I like Joel Parkinson, Andy Irons, those kind of guys, and they would have been riding something like this in their heyday in like the mid 90's, late 90's kind of time. So I like to go and watch their footage and then go ride a board that's similar to what they would have had. So now let's go on to this one. So this is a high performance shortboard as well, although you'll notice there's a lot less rocker in it. The rails are a little bit thicker, a little bit more round, and it's basically just a tuned up version of this, and it's also much shorter. So you can see this one's about as tall as I am, whereas this one is much bigger. Now, I rode both of them on the same day and did the same thing and rode the same waves, and they both worked great. Now this one on my right, the Mayhem, is going to be a lot more drivey, a lot longer. The long rail line is nice for setting bottom turns. You can like get a lot of propulsion out of it, and typically they glass these boards much lighter than they would today, so they flex a lot more, and it feels like there's a little bit of spring in them sometimes. Whereas these shorter boards, you know, you got to ride them a little bit more tail heavy. You can't ride them as up front typically. Whereas these longer surfboards, you can stand up on it a little bit further up on the board and get a lot of drive out of your bottom turns. And the rocker in the nose and the tail is going to allow you to make steep drops much easier than this board would be. So these boards, you have to stand way back on the back of it when you're dropping in, and then go forward as you get into the wave. So it's just a little bit different features there. But let's check out some waves, see if we can find some subtle differences. So basically, dropped in and got a little barrel here, just like normal, following my front hand, came out of the tube, got a little down the line speed with that pump up high like that, right? So then now I'm at the top of the wave, so I'm able to go back down, gain a bunch of speed, and then lay into this turn here. So right here, I'm transferring my weight into my back foot, and I'm actually if you watch my backhand, it goes from up here in the beginning, and I leave it in almost the same spot, and it transfers back behind me as my tail comes around so that I can use it as an anchor to slow me down a bit. The rail is so thin, it sinks into the water very well, so that's why it's able to hold and get, like, you can push much harder on these boards than you would a fish or something like that. So this one here, you can see, you know, with the steep drops, you still kind of have to be on the tail, but you'll notice that the nose of the board never really goes underwater. Like, they're always going to be up a lot. So that's why you can surf them a little bit further up on the board, and you have all the same float that you would on a normal surfboard, or today's normal surfboard. A little bit more drivey as well with a longer surfboard like that. So, you know, the nice thing about these smaller surfboards, you'll see here, with these tight wall, tight canvas to surf on, you can move them around a lot more than you would be on the longer surfboard. You'll notice them driving and pumping as I'm pulling into this barrel here. And I made my way through the tube. And a lot of the times what will happen with the longer surfboards is the nose of the surfboard will actually get hit by the lip when you're in the barrel because it's so long. So sometimes it's really nice, like Ian Gautrin this morning was riding a surfboard that's probably 5'4"-ish, and it's a very small, short, round surfboard with 2 fixed fins on it, twin fin fish from Hobie. And those shorter surfboards in these tight, bowly, pockety waves, they help out a lot because you don't have as much flinging around in front of you to get whacked by the lip or to pearl either. You know, these shorter, rounder boards, you can move them around, they're a lot more nimble, and you end up making a lot more barrels like that. You know, you'll see these clips of Ian in the edit, and he's riding a tiny little fish and getting just as barreled as anybody else out there, if not more barreled, probably. So all these boards work, and that board's actually replicated off, what was it, 80s Hobie fish that I actually borrowed from my old high school surf coach. So that's a copy of an old, very old surfboard, very rudimentary design, as some would say. If I could tell you one thing, don't knock any of those old surfboards. A lot of those guys ripped on those things. Like Tom Curran would be riding a 6'3" this morning and probably getting more barrel than you've ever gotten in your whole life. I would say go try it. Go watch, you know, the Trilogy series or, you know, Lost Across America or something like that. Go do some studying. Go get a chippy 90s yellow shortboard beat up thing and go ride it and try to see if you can do a turn like that. It's pretty fun, and it's definitely a very unique experience, whereas the new boards today are just so user-friendly and so easy to ride. Kind of gives you a little bit of a challenge if you're feeling stale and you're surfing and you want to try something different. Just be safe. Don't kill anybody. These boards are very pointy on the nose, so maybe get like a little nose guard or something, or a helmet. Thanks for tuning back in to SHRALP Stories, episode 522, part 3 in our video series though. Tech tips with Uncle Colty. So go try an old surfboard. You might like it. We're tied to a run, it's time to go. No reason to take it slow. Gotta get up, hit the road, and say what's up to Poncho.